Hey, welcome back. It's time for a garden tour in June. If you're new here, my name is Jair and we are in the Netherlands in Zone 8B. I'll show you what the garden looks like right now and in some cases how it has progressed over time. Let's go. So let's start with the entrance of the garden first. When you enter the garden, you are greeted with some lovely lemon balm growing over here, some lavender around the corners, and of course I have my two corner trellises over here. Now in previous years I've grown some pumpkins in here, so mostly butternut squash. This year I'm growing some purple runner beans in the left corner trellis, the ones that I've always been growing. Used to grow them in an A-frame or a teepee trellis, so this year I'm trying my corner trellis. And on the other side, I'm growing some cherry tomatoes. These are indeterminate, so they will keep growing upwards and upwards. So the corner trellis will be ideal to support them. During this garden tour, you might actually spot some of these bowls that I dug into the ground. Now, these are beer traps against the slugs. My garden is being pestered by slugs and it has been a challenge to keep my seedlings alive. So in case you're wondering, these are beer traps. All right, let's move over to the center of the entrance. First off, I have some little flowers over here, but also some nasturtium. In the past, I've grown some sweet peas in a trellis over here, and as the nasturtium is also a climbing plant, I'm probably going to put another teepee trellis once they're big enough to start climbing. But for now, this is just a little garden in front of the entrance, or at the entrance. Now, the first two grow beds over here, right off the bat, you'll notice this pillowy, cloudy mulch going on, and this is actually alpaca wool. So my sister has two alpacas and she needed to get rid of the wool. So I said, I'll take it off your hands because wool is great mulch. And so I've mulched my late potatoes over here. These are the same as the ones in this bed. And I actually have enough wool to mulch this bed as well. So I'll be doing that in the near future. Now over here in this bed, you might notice some onion plants growing over here. I've grown them from sets and they're going pretty well. However, these are not the only crops growing in here. I have some potato plants in here as well. Now these potato plants are the ones that I failed to dig up last year during the harvest and they started to re-sprout. So I thought, well, I'll just let them go and I'll see if I can get a proper harvest from them as well. All right, let's move on. Right over here, I have a pretty barren patch of soil, at least it looks like it. It has a few plants in there. Now, a few weeks ago, I've made a video about the Amaranth plant and that it had self-seeded over here. And it was growing pretty good actually. However, a lot of slugs came by and they mowed down every plant. So I had to re-sow this patch. And that's the reason why there's not a lot going on. However, there are some small amaranth plants coming up. So I pray that they'll make it till the end of the season. All right, so further down in the center of the garden, we have two more grow beds with some regular potatoes. It's the same story as that grow bed over there. These are the ones that I failed to harvest last year, so they have re-sprouted. But I have also planted some sweet potatoes on this side and on this side at the center. I could make an additional trellis over here because sweet potatoes also tend to sprawl and crawl and you can lead them upwards to save some space. I also have a few lettuce plants over here. Now lettuce is very rare in my garden as every single lettuce plant so far has been munched up, bar another one over there. But they seem to be left alone in this spot. The first grow bed of the hoop trellis or the arch trellis doesn't have a lot of action going on right now. I've had some parsnip plants over here and they were growing pretty tall. They were actually bolting. So I dug them up, but they were like this big, so wasn't a success. I have enough space to grow some more crops over here. Still figuring out which I'm going to plant there, but we'll see. I have some nasturtiums over here. They are also a climbing plant. They are edible, but they're mostly here as a decoration. And I hope they will grow over my arch trellis over here to make a beautiful decorative piece in the garden. Then right over here, we have my soul stone grow bed. And I used to grow sweet potatoes over here. This year I have some strawberry plants in there and they have been the absolute winner of the spring. We have been picking strawberries every other day. They are so rich in flavor, they are so sweet, and we've been picking them like crazy, so none of the strawberries actually make it back home. Okay, so next to the stone bed, we have this big wooden bed over here. And this used to be a dump spot in the last year, and now I have made it my herb bed. There's a lot of herbs in here. I have some oregano, I have some bay leaf, some thyme, some sage. The sage has really exploded. I also have a few flowers in here. This is Californian poppy. Californian poppy. So yeah, I'm very happy. This bed was made with some old wooden beams from a roof construction. So again, I like to reuse material, and yeah, it's been going great so far. As we are walking through the garden, you'll notice that all of the pathways have been covered with wood chips. And beneath those wood chips is another project going on. A few weeks ago, I have inoculated the first half of the garden with the mycelium of the wine cap mushroom. And by the end of the season, I hope there will be a lot of edible mushrooms popping up from my pathway. So fingers crossed. This bed over here is pretty much the only bed that is absolutely void of anything. There's some soil in there. I used to grow some corn and some pepper plants and some pumpkins in there the past 2 years, but now there's not much going on. I'm probably going to replace this with a newer grow bed, but that's something for the future. So let's skip right past it and go over here. This over here is the other bed on the other side of the arch trellis, and I have planted a lot of lettuce seedlings in here, but as I've told before, only one has survived, which is this one here at the corner. The rest have all been eaten up. I have a few more tomato plants over here, two in fact. One is a cherry tomato and the other is just a regular tomato. And I have a cucumber plant, which is still fairly small, but its predecessor has been eaten up by slugs as well. So that's why there's also another bowl over there, and hopefully that will attract the slugs and keep it away from my cucumber. This side over here is nothing but potatoes. In these two grow beds over here, I have a type that is called Frieslander, after the province of Friesland in the Netherlands. And it's an early potato, so that's why they're the biggest at the moment right now. And over here, there is a mid-late potato type, which is called Nicola. And well, both of these, or actually all three of these grow beds are growing pretty well. So a lot of potatoes this year. This little oasis at the very center of my garden is of course the flower bed, and this is mainly here to attract pollinators. There's a lot of bees and bumblebees going about. They are absolutely loving it. We have some calendula growing here in the front, which it has overwintered from last year, and it has exploded even more than last year. It's a beautiful plant, and it's of course also a medicinal plant used a lot in skincare. I have some borage growing here and there. Borage scatters very easily. I've been finding them everywhere in the garden. And this little curly plant over here is called Love in a Mist, I think in English. We call it Juffertje in het groen, which you can get more Dutch than that. And in the middle over here in the center, I have a small pool, and I've actually found a little toad swimming about. So yeah, it's a hub for biodiversity, and I'm very glad with this. These are the original grow beds that I've built in the very first year that I started this garden. In the first bed, there's not a lot going on. I have one courgette plant, which is actually the second crop that I've planted in there, but they have been munched up by slugs a lot. This is a very late white cabbage, and I'm not really sure if it's still doing anything. There's a borage over there as well, but yeah, there's a lot more room for crops to grow in this one. Then the second bed over here, I have a big bush of lemon balm over there, but I also have some white onions growing over here, and these are actually grown from seed. So I'm actually pretty proud that I've pulled this off so far, because I've heard that a lot of people have trouble with growing onions from seed. And in the third bed over here, another lemon balm bush. This is just mainly for tea. I also have a second courgette plant at the very end over there. That one has been surviving so far. And I have some spinach growing over here. Now, with this warm weather that we're having right now, the spinach is probably going to bolt soon, but there are some edible leaves growing quite large right now, so I can start picking them very soon. Then here in front of the dome, I have another bed which has a few garlic in them. I've actually recently posted a short on digging up one of the garlics, and the bulb was actually a decent size, so there are still 7 to 8 plants left in here. Once I've dug them up during the solstice, I'm probably going to put some leeks in there, or we'll see. And I also have some more herb pots over here, so some Moroccan mints and some thyme. Welcome to the dome. This has been by far my biggest and most challenging project in the garden, but also the most rewarding one, as it is a true eye-catcher in the garden, and it is of course very functional. At the beginning of the year, I isolated the dome, and that helped it contain the warmth during the colder months. Of course, as you can imagine right now, that isn't really necessary. It is very hot in the dome right now, close to 40 degrees Celsius. But for some plants, that is an ideal temperature to grow in. So over here, for example, I have some tomatoes growing. I have some purple bell peppers, some chili peppers, even a chocolate habanero. Behind me there is a zucchini or a courgette plant, and I have some basil plant, or basil plant I think. Recently I've added this little table over here, which proved to be extremely useful, just to put some seedlings on there or to stash some garden utensils. And it's also easily folded in, so if I choose not to use it anymore, it takes up very little space, but it will probably stay here permanently. And over here I have some more seedlings waiting to be planted out in the garden. These over here are some sunflower seedlings. I have some corn that desperately needs to get into full soil, and an additional courgette plant just as a backup. Now I'm getting out of this dome because I'm cooking away and the camera is overheating. We are here in Berry Lane, and Berry Lane has been living up to its name so far. A lot of the fruit bushes that I've planted in the last 2 years have been really starting to grow. Over here I have a red currant, which is full of these little red berries. We have some gold raspberries over here. We have a blackberry that has absolutely exploded. It's almost as tall as I am. Next to that we have blueberries and some more raspberries over here, red ones. And this over here is the latest addition to Berry Lane. This is the strawberry tower. It has already given us quite some strawberries. This is ideal if you don't have a lot of space and you still want to grow something. You can grow strawberries in here, but this also works perfectly for example, lettuce or rocket. And again, like I said, ideal if you don't have a lot of space in your garden. All right, so this is the hop tower. It has remained unchanged in the last 3 years. I do brew my own beer from time to time, so I love that I have a hop producing plant in my garden, and it's just a nice decorative piece, at least I think, in the garden, even though it's all the way in the back. Over here, something new is going on. Yes, I'm finally making progress with the water catching system. I have been postponing this for almost as long as I have the garden. As you can see, I'm building a frame, and hopefully soon these 2 barrels will finally have a purpose. We are behind the dome right now. This is the compost station over here, and this part in particular is the Johnson-Su bioreactor. Now, I've made a lot of videos on the Johnson-Su bioreactor, so if you're interested in the details on this project, then do watch those videos as I go quite in depth on the whole situation. Now that I am building the frame for the water catching system, the bioreactor tends to get a little bit more shade from the south side, which is very fortunate as I don't want this compost to dry out. Then on the other side of my compost station is my regular compost bin doing what it should be doing. Very important, not that exciting. And at the other end of the garden, I have 2 more mushroom projects going on. I made a video on both of those, so do check them out. On my right, I have a cylinder filled with straw, and I've inoculated that straw with the oyster mushroom mycelium. So I'm hoping to grow some beautiful oyster mushrooms from this project. And on my left, I have some logs inoculated with several types of mushroom mycelium, turkey tail, some shiitake, and some lion's mane. This project on my left, the logs, is a long-term project, so I will probably only see the results of that by the end of next year, while I'm hoping that this project over here will give me some oyster mushrooms by the end of this season. I think this is the cleanest the garden has ever looked ever since I started it 2.5 years ago, and I'm very glad with it. Yes, it could have been more lush by now, and there are quite some spaces vacant in the grow beds, but I'm hoping to fill those up with some seedlings in the coming weeks. Thanks for sticking around with me. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.